Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Have you ever seen anyone die? Has it changed your views in any way? Are you more in tune with the supernatural? I was on the ground in Afghanistan several days after 9/11 and finally came back home in 2011 with the drawdown in Iraq. I have taken up private military contracting now. No, it never really did affect me. There is a detachment that develops around seeing others die that has to do with so much sleep deprivation. I forget most things the second that I fall asleep. Going 4 to 5 days on a SAR op gets you forgetting a lot of yourself.
Grandpa was given 7 to 10 days to live due to various cancer-related issues. Visit him several times during his last what would be 8 days. Witness his slow deterioration from fully functional to more coma than awake. 7 days later, lying in bed. He crosses my mind briefly. An overpowering voice in my head says, "Tomorrow." Pass out immediately afterward. The next morning, eating breakfast. Phone call at 7 a.m., knew exactly what it was. He had died the night before. I don't know how to explain it, but things like that happen to me often. I'll be biking around a corner in a parking lot, and I'll have this itching need to pay attention, boom, someone pulling out without looking. Or I'd somehow just know if someone was going to open my door soon, and base whether or not I'm going to fap around that. That sense was never wrong, either. Combine that with how easily I get nosebleeds, and it gets difficult to remain skeptic.
2 occasions. The first when I was 15 years old. I was a deckhand on a fishing boat on the Great Barrier Reef. We would all disperse in our small boats. 4 small boats and a big boat to line fish for coral trout and whatever else we could catch. I'd been working on the boat for about 3 months when it happened. We all would come back to the big boat for lunch, but one day one of the guys didn't come back. He'd taken his boat out of sight, which we usually didn't do, but he was a damn good fisherman and always caught the most, so he could get away with it. After we had lunch and waited about another half hour, we started to get a little worried. If you have an accident or fall overboard out at the reef and can't get back into your boat, then it's pretty much game over. We connected all of the small boats to the big boat and used binoculars to spot the missing boat. As we came closer and could see more clearly through the binoculars, it became apparent that the boat was empty at anchor. Our stomachs turned immediately, knowing that the chances of survival drops to 0% extremely quickly out there. The boss immediately ordered the remaining crew to fuel up their small boats and disembark down current of the empty vessel to try to rescue the missing crewmate, but to no avail. Mayday was called, and several large boats and crews with a 40-mile radius heeded the call for search and rescue. Keep in mind that these are big, slow fishing boats capable of traveling at about 5 to 8 knots with the following sea. They didn't arrive for some time, so us remaining crew continued to search as far and wide as we could in a sweeping grid pattern. Aerial search and rescue came on the scene within a few hours and did their best until darkness fell. We knew his chances of survival were slim to none at this point. All boats and their crews in aerial search and rescue began the search again at first light, but the day did not locate him. The next morning the search continued once more. At this point we were searching for a floating body. The aerial team spotted him. They dropped smoke flares near him, and we happened to be the closest boat. I'm not sure how far away he was, but we had to travel for quite a while before seeing the smoke on the horizon. At a guess, I'd say maybe 8 nautical miles. It was then our responsibility to recover the body and transport the poor bloke 90 or so miles back to harbor. At just 15 years old and on the first real job of my life, this was all pretty shocking to me, but I handled myself better than my older cousins who also worked on the boat with me. As gently as possible, we manhandled him out of the ocean and onto the covered back deck, back ice around his body, and started our excruciatingly long journey home. We traveled all through the night, and of course, somehow I ended up with the midnight shift of driving the boat while everyone else tried to sleep. Nothing quite like being in the middle of the ocean at midnight with a deceased crew member out back. Nothing much scared me after that. I probably should have seen a counselor or something, but nah, screw that. Life and death, hey bros. We stayed in port for an extended period after that. When we returned back to work, guess who got his boat to use? Second sight of death and a spiritual acknowledgement. The second death I witnessed was a car crash on the highway in Queensland. My friend and I were traveling south to go to a 2012 day out-of-time gathering. Hippie stuff in regards to what was supposed to be the end of the world or something according to the Mayan calendar. You know the one. Anyway, as we were on the highway doing 100 kilometers per hour, a car coming in the opposite direction lost control and swerved out of control down the highway toward us. I made the split-second decision to use defensive driving to try to avoid the car rather than just come to a complete stop and be at the mercy of the out-of-control vehicle. The other car was swerving widely from one side of the road to the other and into our lane. I crossed into the other lane to avoid it, and we missed a head-on collision by about 1 meter. The other car continued out of control, and in my rear-view mirror I saw the dust cloud rise from where they had left the road. I pulled up my car safely, and my friend and I caught our breath and let the adrenaline subside a little, but we knew we had to turn around and go check on the accident. An elderly woman was already out of the car and walking across the road away from the accident, and I thought, thank God for that. She's alive. I got out of my car, and as I got near the lady, she was saying,
My husband, I've killed my husband.
The car turned a 180 from the direction they had been traveling and came off the road sideways and slammed into a tree on the passenger side, where the old husband was sitting. My friend and I went around to the side of the car to see the old man. His head had struck either the tree itself or the door jamb so violently that his head was split open and his brain was visible. Unbelievably, he was still breathing and struggling for life, but he had no chance of survival. His hands were clamped up and he was having what I guess are death's throes, a dying fit, his muscles and body spasming uncontrollably. I was raised a Catholic, and I guess instinctively I attempted a layman's last rites. I spoke out loud, hoping that the old man could somehow hear me. It didn't occur to me what religion he was, but it's Australia, and most old folks are Catholics or Christian of some denomination. So I said a prayer as the man passed away in front of us. Through the cloud cover that day, I swear a beam of light about 5-meter diameter shone directly onto the wrecked car. And the old couple little dog jumped out of the car and ran across the road to the old lady who in the background had been yelling the dog's name for some time. Come to think of it, I thought that the old man's name was what she was yelling, and I was pretty mortified when I figured out that she seemed to care more about the dog than her dearly departed husband. The shock, I guess. The light beam seemed so intense that to me there was no doubt that either a ghost had come or that the man's spirit had transmuted into the dog or something. It was quite incredible and sobering, but I'll never doubt the presence of the spirits in our lives when we most need it.
Be like 12. Go with my friend and her family to their lakeside cabin. Swimming in lake. Her brother and his friend get out of this canoe out of nowhere. Everyone gets in the canoe. They start to rock the canoe. Canoe tips over to the surprise of no one. Friend and I got trapped under the canoe. Canoe too heavy to tip upright, can't touch ground, can't swim from panic. Air pocket quickly disappearing. Friend is hyperventilating and using up all the air. Push her away so I can breathe. Friend flips out and shoves me under the water. Can't breathe, holy shit, this is how I'm going to die. Overwhelming peace comes over me. Stop struggling. Feel something grab me and start pulling me down to the bottom of the lake. Don't even care anymore. Just before I black out, see the canoe tip upright. Brother gets his shit together and saves us. Black out and wake up on the dock. Friend crying hysterically going on about me being dead. Don't go swimming in the lake ever again. No longer best friends with friend. I tried to talk to her about this a few years later when we were still on speaking terms, but she had no memory of what happened. This wasn't the first time I almost drowned, just the closest I got to actually drowning. Take note that I'm a fantastic swimmer, but every time I almost drowned it was in a lake. Screw lakes.
My brother suffocated in my arms a few years back due to a brain tumor which had rendered him paralyzed. I remember sitting on the edge of the hospital bed, holding his body, waiting for the morgue people to arrive. I sat and stared through the window at the night sky for about an hour. His body went cold and stuff. His skin resembled porcelain. He was very beautiful then and there, as strange as it sounds. I thought to myself, screw this world. Screw being human. Screw emotions. Screw everything. I don't want to play these silly human games anymore. I'm tired. Done. I haven't properly felt emotion since then. I can't relate to people anymore. I feel disconnected from this world. I see people run around all over the place, guided by emotions, doing stupid shit all because of anger, love, and so on. It's all so tiresome. I started reading about religion, psychology, everything I could find to try and fill the void. My brother died 4 years ago, and I can't remember having any paranormal experiences. I'm so tired. I believe I will end my life soon. I'm consumed by nihilism. I don't want to, but I can't seem to genuinely believe in anything else, no matter how hard I try. All my dreams, urges, and emotions are gone, and I am left with nothing. It's almost as if my soul left together with my brother that night. He took one final loud breath, and then he passed away, which I found rather strange since he was completely paralyzed and hadn't made a move in hours prior. I only knew he was alive because I could feel his warmth. But then I don't know much about the human body, and I suppose it could just have been all his instincts firing off in one last desperate attempt to cling on to life, the last energy he had. I really haven't been the same since. I don't know if that could be considered a paranormal event. I suppose it's subjective at the end of the day, just like everything else in this damned world.
Bea, 8 years old, walking randomly around my neighborhood. Pleasant day, it's late spring, everything's bright and in bloom. Decided to cross over a field to get to my friend's house. Girl with a paper mask in the middle of the field. Figure there must have been some sort of party. Pay no more attention to it as I approach her. She stands still. I feel intimidated. I see the whites of her eyes. She looks enraged, like incensed. You don't play with toys, do you? I stop and say no. I wait for a response, then quickly walk away, not wanting one. I look back at her as I walk away, wondering why I was so scared, thinking what a coward I am. She is holding a huge butcher knife. Notice the wooden handle has been removed and it's just the blade. Ran to my friend's house. He said he's meeting some other friends for football. I just want to stay in and play Sega. A few weeks after this incident, my friend gets attacked. He got beaten pretty bad, said it was a few guys. Somehow I think it was the girl, and still do.
I have a couple. B10. Grew up in a slightly scummy part of New Jersey. Parents took me and my brother to the park one morning. Bring chicken feed for the ducks. Pale, bloated body face down in the pond. Third one that year, and it was April. Then when I was a teenager, waiting for the train because we had some field trip and my class was meeting by the city library. Couple of private school kids, maybe 7th grade or so, dicking around. Kid drops his Game Boy on the track. Express train is coming. Think to myself, oh you dumbass, because I know he's going to jump down for it to try and save it. Turn away, but hear the sort of wet thump and the following yells and see the chunks of the aftermath. Game Boy splattered and still intact. I had to get my grandma to drive me because they cancelled the trains for the next few hours. And then, when I was in my early 20s, didn't see much, but I saw enough. 9/11. On the ferry to work. First plane hits the building. Driver is like the fuck and keeps us grounded. Pretty good view. See second plane hit. See bodies falling. Weird mix of shocked, saddened, and glad that I have an excuse to not go to work that day.
Grandparents own some gas station mechanic shop. It's in the middle of nowhere, miles from anything. It's placed on one corner of the cross-section of two roads. One heads north-south, the other east-west. Road is mainly occupied by semi-trucks and the occasional traveler or lost soul. There are stop signs, but no one ever cares. Everyone just uses the isolated location as an excuse to go fast as hell. Due to wanting to get away from the city, I go for 2 weeks out there. Haven't even settled in when I hear the familiar sound of a semi's horn blaring. Loud ass, crash, crunch, exploding, screeching sound. Go out front. The semi front end is messed up and there's a mass of metal that was once a car resting quite a distance from it in the road. Guy in the car is clearly dead with his head dangling down to his chest. The trucker's fine. It takes forever for someone to come. Firefighters arrive, operate as EMTs in the area. There's only one guy. What the hell? Briefly checks with the truck driver, then examines the car. Just says, EEEYUP, and goes back to the truck and grabs a cutter. Starts cutting away the car so he can remove the body. Asks me to give him a hand after he's done getting it opened. What? Put on gloves. Has me keep the dude's head in place as he tries to cut some metal pieces on the inside, pinning the body. Cops and more firefighters, a meat wagon comes too, arrive. They take over head-holding duties so I can give a statement.
Family is gone for the weekend. Home alone, the house is isolated deep in the woods. Staying up late playing video games in the basement. Go up to the kitchen. It's pitch black, but I can sense something isn't right. Room feels wrong. Run to the light. Flip it. Back door is wide open. Freak out a bit and start looking around for an intruder. See, the front door is wide open too. Door to the garage is wide open. Both garage doors are open. I didn't even hear the motors. Look out past the garage to the shed, that door is also hanging open. Scared to go out and close it. Close both garage doors and hit the lock button to stop the opener from working. Deadbolt all the outer doors. Hide in the room all night with Dad's shotgun. Just before the sun rises, hear light footsteps in the kitchen. Wait until sunrise. See tiny childlike footprints in the snow all around the house, looping from door to the shed and back. Never tell anyone.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel, as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.